Okay, so she just said she's giving some reporters a chance to get there to the scene, so about 4 more minutes here. We'll go back to the website to give them some time here. But as you could see, first of all, this is our top story on our website right now. Appleton police saying that they have 1 person in custody, if you're just joining us, following that disturbance that may involve a weapon, and police officers are still at the scene. And police aren't saying if any other people may be involved, but I'm sure maybe we'll hear more possibly right now. But this was the 1100 block of North Lemonweigh Street. So people in that immediate area were advised to shelter in place. That was still happening as of just a couple of minutes ago with Kristen Allen, who just went live for our mid-morning show. So it's actually near East Wisconsin Avenue, near Ballard Road and Meade Street. So let's see if she's got this started yet.
County Sheriff's Office, State Patrol, and several other local partners responded to the area of 1100 block North Lemonweigh. Officers had responded out there for shots fired that they heard reported from that area. Officers got out there and while investigating that, heard gunshots again. And as investigating that incident, they located what they believed was a home in that 1100 block of North Lemonweigh that they believed was involved. At that time, they were confronted by a person who also shot off some rounds into the air. So currently, officers have been out there negotiating with our SWAT team and our SWAT negotiators. 1 person is in custody at this time, the suspect that we believe was witnessed by those officers. And at this point, we are holding that scene until we can confirm all of those things and secure the rest of the residents. At this time, there are no injuries that have been reported. There's nothing that we've observed yet as far as any damage or anything. We're just working through to make sure that there's nobody else in that residence, and there's no other threats to our community at this time.
Were the shots fired inside or outside?
Outside the residence.
Okay, so it sounds like someone was walking around, maybe a yard, sidewalk, whatever, and...
We believe potentially in the air that the shots went off into the air, and that's what our officers from a distance believe they observed. So at this point, we're just working through making sure that there's no other concerns that we have. We're holding that perimeter. Officers will remain in the area for a while still. We'll continue to process that, be able to get those interviews done with anybody else that we're able to come in contact with.
Obviously, shooting a gun is very dangerous, but is there any time where the suspect pointed at officers or threatened them in that way?
As of right now, those interviews are still happening with those officers that first responded on scene because it's been so active and the fact that we were concerned for anybody else that could be in that area. We haven't been able to get through all of those interviews yet, but at this point, we believe that the rounds were just shot into the air at this point.
And do you believe it's just the 1 suspect?
We believe there's just 1 suspect. There was potentially other parties in the residence that were getting out of that house and are actively working on that. At this point, we don't believe there's any other additional threats within that house based on the information we have at this time, but we're going to continue to work through that and make sure that we identify anybody that could have been in there. Those interviews are happening as we speak.
To confirm, just as we talked to Gary earlier, he said that, of course, police was called when someone first heard shots fired on that street around 3 a.m. Then when officers were there around 4:45, that's when the male came out, shot what they think was just 1 round or 1 shot was there.
That's
went
correct.
back inside and they think he shot another.
They thought they could have potentially heard something else unclear at that point. That's where those clarifying interviews are being done as we speak.
And do you think that the people in the house are victims that were held hostage, anything like that? Or?
At this point, we don't have any reason to believe that they were being held against their will. We're working through that. Our negotiator team was out there and actively involved in the incident to just determine kind of what were we dealing with. Were we dealing with a person acting on their own, or was there some other issues going on within that household that was part of that disturbance or not? At this point, we don't believe that was part of that disturbance.
I think I heard shelter in place, but were there anybody actually evacuated?
No one was actively evacuated from their homes this morning. Our officers and SWAT team felt confident in the containment area that they had, and the visibility that we had with some of our technology drone teams and things like that, to be able to contain anything that would be happening in that residence. The shelter in place was just to ensure that we had people staying in their houses and not coming into that perimeter area, not coming out of into their yards. It was a precautionary measure.
Was this just handled by the police department or the sheriff's department assist?
So we had initially our Appleton police officers that were working in that evening shift responded. Eventually, Outagamie County Sheriff, State Patrol, Fox Valley Metro, our Appleton SWAT team was deployed, as well as the Outagamie County contingent members from their SWAT team as well, and working with a lot of those other additional partners. Gold Cross was out there, a few others.
What can you say about the de-escalation? Do you think it was successful, the response? You did see drones out there, we saw the SWAT team, we saw all of the agencies.
One thing that we feel really confident as a police department is that our ability to bring all of those teams out, and that they work so seamlessly together. So having the drone team be available, having the SWAT team members out there in a Bearcat with a negotiator inside that Bearcat is something that we feel confident in, that ability to use all of those tools to be able to keep our community safe. And I think this morning is an example of that.
You mentioned that you don't have any reason to believe there's hospitals or anything like that, but when you were negotiating, was it just this person that fired the shots not wanting to come out? Do you believe this person's like mentally unstable?
The person actually was able to come out of the residence at a certain point, and we were able to face-to-face negotiate with them. And so we were confident that we had a contained person outside of that residence. So it was mainly negotiating with that person, trying to gauge where they were at, and what sort of a crisis they were in, to be able to get them safely into custody.
Do you have any timeline on when Wisconsin Avenue will reopen?
At this point, it's going to be our ability to get those interviews done, the ability to make sure that we safely approach and clear that house entirely. So at this point, I don't have a timeline. Our investigators and a lot of our other staff are working on those interviews to make sure there's nothing that we're missing. So I would say it's still going to be quite some time.
You said that the one person in custody, can you describe how that happened? Did he come out and give himself up? I'm assuming it's a male.
Yeah, it was a male. Our officers had to use some force to be able to get him into custody, and so right now they're interviewing him and making sure that we get as much information as we can.
So they had to basically break down the door?
Nope, he came out of the residence, and that's who they were negotiating with in the yard for quite some time.
Are you able to release the age at all?
No, not at this moment. Thank you.
I think we're good. Anything else that you'd like to mention that?
No, we're just going to continue to ask the public to just remain clear from that area, allow our officers to continue to work that scene. If there are specific questions that they have, feel free to call our front desk. We can definitely provide what we're able to. We'll continue to update things on our social media platforms as quickly as we can. We just appreciate the patience that our community is giving us as we continue to process this scene. It's something that we want to use all of our tools available to keep the community safe, and some of those things just take time. Thank you.
Was the suspect taken directly to the jail, or?
The suspect is likely going to go through a medical clearance process just based on the status. Yep. All right, I can do it over for you.